Can you lose your identity in a relationship? Welcome back to After Our Happy Hour. We are a chaotic but cathartic co-host. I'm Vicky.
I'm Jamila.
I'm Sharon. And this episode is about having an identity and whether you will lose it or have it in a relationship, or if you should keep it or not keep it when you're in a relationship. I don't know where we're going with this. Apparently, I thought of this topic, but I don't even remember thinking about this topic. But I think it's a cool one. There's so many people who... are like, fuck, I just got out of that relationship and I need to find myself again. Or like, oh, post-breakup, like time to do me again. And it's just like, did you lose your identity while you were in a relationship? What happened?
That was actually a really good introduction. I wasn't laughing at you talking though. I was laughing at you messing with your hair.
I was trying to pin it up, but I was like, wait, it seems weird to like pin it up while I'm talking.
I kind of didn't pay attention to what you said. I was so focused on you fixing your hair. Did you see me mock her?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first question's a great question because I don't even know the answer to this. Fuck.
If you guys if you guys are listening to the audio version of this, the reason why we're laughing is because Vicky has been trying to fix her hair for as long as this podcast started, and she still hasn't.
I'm trying to look cute while having my hair up, and it's not possible.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. First question we have is, what do you mean by identity? How is it different from just changing and evolving as a person? Wow, who came up with these questions? That's a good one.
You.
Let's start with the first part. What do you mean by identity? What is an identity?
Is that who you are as a person?
I feel like the non-serious answer is just like, I want to be a badass, cool girl. And when people look at me, I want them to be like, oh my God, she's cool. And I aim for that. I don't get I get tattoos because they look cool. Like that's why I get tattoos. Like I don't get them because a lot of them mean anything to me. Like I mean they do, but it's also like I look cool.
In your relationships, you're trying to maintain your cool identity.
Oh no, but I mean like in life. Sorry, I forgot relationships. Actually, okay, now it's coming back to me because I'm like, why the fuck did I say this? I feel like I'm a different person in a relationship than I am with friends or like with my siblings, with my family. You know, like there's a different me that is present when I am with my partner.
How?
I feel like I want to be more dependent when I'm with my partner. Because I'm more a very independent person, but like when I start dating someone, there's the more like baby side of me that comes out where I'm like, can you do this for me? I don't want to think about this. Can you do it? And things like that.
I feel like I have a pretty consistent identity across relationships, friendships.
Really?
Yeah.
Then what about like the concept of like before relationship versus after relationship? Because we say that every relationship is a learning moment.
Feel like I change because I get closer to what I like or what I want in a guy, and I learned of how I was like in that relationship, what I did right, what I did wrong, and how I can improve myself as a better partner for the next one. But I never had the feeling of I was a completely different person or I lost myself or I need to refine myself after a breakup.
I agree. I don't think I've ever lost myself post-relationship. If anything, I felt more secure about myself afterwards because I'm like, I thought I needed you, but I don't.
I also like to think I have I'm the same person in a relationship that I am outside of a relationship or like with my friends.
So you telling me if I hung out with you and your mans, I would be like, that's the Sharon I know.
I mean, yes, but like, of course, there's gonna be sides to me that only he would see, right? Because I'm not dating you. But I feel like for me, I would be the same. Like, there's no side of me that this guy would know that you guys wouldn't know.
Yeah, I've seen her fully naked, so.
Yeah, I actually agree. Even, you know how in Korean culture, there's like the whole aegyo thing with your mans? And if you asked like, oh, in your trio, who would be the least likely to show signs of affection in an aegyo way to their mans? And I feel like everyone would think Vicky, but I would actually think Jam.
Huh. That is not true. Give Jam a couple shots.
How do I explain this? Like Jam will show affection and stuff, but like I don't think Jam's like aegyo.
Like, even when I was editing this last episode, there was this one part where, oh, Vicky was like, it's because I always get called cute, but if a man I was talking to called me pretty, like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, Vicky. Like, I could totally see her with a man's being like, oh my God, you think I'm pretty? Like, kind of like that egg yolk versus, Jam, I feel like she'll just be like, oh, like, she'll just like blush or, take it, like, receive the compliment, but I don't think she'll necessarily like raise her voice or be like, oh, you think so? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Oh.
baby voice almost. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would see Vicky doing that more than Jam.
Is that because, like, day to day, I'm so manly that, like, the moments that I do it, I'm just like, whoa.
No. It's because I've seen you say things in an egg yolk way before. So I can transfer that into, okay, if she's in a relationship, I can see that. Versus Jam is like, I don't know, explain it. It's not egg yolk. She, you don't agree?
I guess I was kind of surprised when you said that because I thought I would be, I guess, the most. But it's also when I'm drunk.
Yeah, I said then we gotta remove drunk. I'm talking sober. Like, you know how baby voice is a thing? What do they call that in a relationship? Is it called baby voice?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself doing that, Jam?
Give me an example again. How's it go?
Hi, babe.
That's not even, like, the extent of baby voice. Like, people
Yeah.
go in on that shit.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like, you know how when you look at a baby and you look at a dog, your voice automatically switches? People do that with their mans. Do you think you would do that?
No.
Exactly.
But I don't think any of us would.
Yes, you would, Vicky.
I would not do it to a man's. I've never done it. Not in a serious way.
But I feel like I could see you if it's the right person.
Well, yeah. The how many relationships I've been in, none of them were right at any point because I've never done it. There's one time I was hanging out with like a couple of friends, and it was my first time seeing her in like maybe a couple of days, and I got really excited, and I was like, "Oh my God, hi!" to my friend, and then the guy that I was with at that moment looked at me and was like, "You never do that to me," and I was like, "Oh."
Wait, we talked about this. We talked about how Vicky is more affectionate to friends, family versus her boyfriend.
No, but she literally said it herself in the last episode of like, let's say a guy she was talking to who she likes was like, oh my God, you look really pretty today. You wouldn't react like, oh my God, really? What would you say? Just, oh, thanks.
I wouldn't say it like seriously. I would be like in a like clowning him kind of way. Like I wouldn't genuinely be like, oh my God, like, you know, I'd be like fucking with him. It's just like someone compliments you and like it's kind of like a defense mechanism because you can't handle a compliment and you go, oh my God, you think I'm so smart? I think so too.
Wait, what was the question? Like, do we have the same identity in a relationship versus like a friendship?
No, the question is literally, what do you mean by identity?
But that we're trying to figure out if we're different people in a relationship versus not in a relationship.
Can we come to a simple conclusion? At least for me, I don't think I am.
I think I'm a different.
I think I'm different.
I could see Sharon as being a different one.
Why?
Dude, I always tell Vicky this. I feel like even to this day, I don't know what you and are like. It's not like we don't ask or whatever, but it feels like Sharon is different than like Vicky and Jam's Sharon. Not in a bad way or anything, but I could feel that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. But like when you say you don't know what I would be like in with my boyfriend, oh my God.
She really can't say boyfriend.
Like, is it because you don't hear about what our dynamic is like, or more so you're saying that you can see me doing stuff with him that I don't do with you guys?
I think a part of it is because you don't talk about it as much / we don't hear about it as much. And two, even you said so yourself, or some of the stuff that you have talked about, examples you said, you're like, oh, we do this and we do this. I'm like, huh? That's what Sharon would do? Or that's what Sharon likes kind of things.
Like what?
I feel like this is a bad example, but it's the first one I could think off the top of my head. But the good night, good morning, when you kind of said you appreciate or just like good night, good morning kind of thing, I was like, oh, interesting. I thought Sharon would be the type to be like, oh, it's fine, we'll just end the conversation here and pick it up tomorrow.
Oh, you know what? Jam's right. No, I definitely think I'm a different person in a relationship.
I feel like you're way more hopelessly romantic and like that aspect than people would take you for.
I can see that. I was thinking in the sense of like identity, as in, for example, I value communication where if you guys were to give me a situation where maybe you're unhappy in a relationship or something's happening at work where you feel like you need to say something, then I'll truly encourage you guys to communicate that, right? So that's part of my identity because I believe in that. But then sometimes I find myself in similar situations maybe where it's hard for me to do that in a relationship setting. So I feel like I do have a little conflict of identity crisis where I'm like, oh, I thought I was able to do blah, 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 blah. But then when it comes to it myself, I struggle with communication or stuff like that. So like
Oh
maybe
my
in that
gosh.
aspect, I'm a little bit like,
But I feel like that is a different identity in a relationship than you are as a person. I feel like sacrifice is such a negative connotation word, but it's just like once you get into a relationship, and I feel like only people who's been in like pretty serious relationships can relate, even though there's like moral principles that you've had going into that relationship during it, because you like someone so much, you learn to compromise on certain things. And sometimes it's a bad compromise, and maybe that's what people mean by like when they leave a relationship, they're like, fuck, I like lost that part of myself. But then other times when things work out and your relationship work out, those compromises are needed.
yeah. Like I'll give an example. If you've been here listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know at one point Vicky said she would never date somebody who doesn't eat fish. So like that's part of your identity, right? But let's say you do end up dating someone who doesn't eat fish, then maybe a part of your subconscious is like, fuck, well, I thought that was part of my identity. What am I doing with that? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what people struggle with sometimes. Obviously, the raw fish example it's not that deep. But on a deeper level, I think that's where people have identity crisis of like, oh, I thought I wanted a guy who could read signs better or like could do this better. But like, am I compromising, or am I just learning that a relationship is hard work and here and there you have to learn how to compromise or, train and stuff like that?
Do you feel like you've compromised on anything in your relationship that you were like before that was your identity, or you were like, this is strong morals, but now you're like, I could wean back and forth?
You know, I have one, but it's from so long ago. It's super unserious. But you guys know how I love going out. I love going to concerts, events, and stuff, right? So with my second ex, we started before I went to college. And going to college, I always knew I wanted to party. I want to like do fun things. But that was something that he didn't like. He wasn't comfortable with. So then I compromised and I didn't go to any events. And then we got into a fight about it when he found out that I went to an event. And I think that was kind of maybe like a wake-up call, like, damn, it's just one event. Are we really gonna fight about this?
I remember that.
Yeah. Perhaps before, because I was still trying to find my quote-unquote identity or just myself, that I was more willing to compromise or just go along with things that wouldn't cause fights. But I think now I know a lot more of what I want and what I want in a guy, that I wouldn't be as compromising as I was before.
So are you saying basically if you were to date someone right now and you don't go out as much now as you did in college, but you still go out. So if you were to meet someone right now who was pretty not down for that and against that, then you would immediately know off the bat that it's not going to work out long term, so you wouldn't even give it the time of the day.
Probably.
I think that's pretty fair, actually.
Because I feel like going out or just having fun, going to these things is a part of my joy. So I just don't see how him being against it is like come to any kind of compromise.
But what if he's not against it, he just doesn't go with you?
I feel like if he's once in a while he's down, like, hey, yeah, I want to go, versus he's like, I never want to go. I never
like
want
Sharon once in a while.
I guess we could find. I mean, I think I'll like him enough, like how I like Sharon enough, that I could find other hobbies to do together.
I think that is a big aspect to compromise, though.
Yeah, I guess it depends what other things do we align on, what other things do we have interest in. If this is just a small part of it, like let's just say he just doesn't want to go clubbing, he doesn't want to go drinking, I think I could find some other people to do that with, versus if there's like nothing else that we can do together and stuff. Yeah, so I think situation is situation.
Yeah, I think mine were more idealistic in the aspect of I always would say, I want to be with somebody who knows how to open the car door for me. Or I want to be with somebody who is, I guess, maybe, I don't even know what you call that, like romantic or chivalrous maybe. Yeah, like having the emotional intelligent capacity to be like, make sure she's on the inside of the road, or make sure she goes first, she's walking in front of me in these scenarios, stuff like that, where I'm sure there are a lot of men out there who know how to do that, but I also understand that not all people do. So in those situations, it's okay to, I guess, quote unquote, train them to do that rather than being like a hard pass. You don't do those things. So this is a reflection of your character. So no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like they're not big enough things that I'm quote unquote compromising, because those are things that can be learned rather than a moral or principle that I personally don't align with.
I don't know why I didn't bring this up earlier because it has nothing to do with this question, but I think I'm very short tempered in a relationship. A lot more bratty than you would expect me to be. And not bratty in like a cute way, but like it's my way or the highway.
Huh?
And it's something I'm trying to fix, but like most of the time I feel like I'm just fucking right.
As in, you are like this in a relationship but not elsewhere?
In friends, even in family and stuff, I'm very patient with people and I'm very like willing to be like, okay, benefit of the doubt. Even if I have to like be the bigger person, I'm more than willing to. Like I won't get mad, I won't anything. But in a relationship, I like don't do that at all. Like I will get pissed and like I will lose my temper and I will show you that I lose my temper more than I would in any other relationship in my life.
Is it because you hate men?
I feel like partially that, and it's also like I hold on to my identity. Like, you know how like my identity is like I'm very independent, I have very high standards, I have all this stuff. And so once I go into a relationship, I'm more keen on like holding on to that. Like I'm not trying to make compromises on what I want. I'm not trying to like break what I came into this relationship thinking myself to be. And so like once something disturbs that idea, I automatically get upset or I automatically want to fight about it and I'll argue about it and stuff like that. I don't know. But I do feel myself get like trigger friendly when I am in a relationship. Like I could be picking a fight every single day if
Why
I
is
was
that?
psychotic. I don't know. I think I'm just like that's my alter ego where it's just like
Things that
everything
your
just
man's does just annoys you.
maybe. I wonder if all my partners that I've been with has felt that. I feel like most of the time I like control it really well because I don't want to be psychotic. But like here and there I like want to be psychotic.
I feel like that's a good thing though, or like to an extent, right? But I feel like if you can communicate your frustrations in a relationship, it's a good thing, because sometimes I don't. On the flip side, I've grown up on being like the people pleaser, and a lot of times on my brother's side, if he does something that irritates me, sometimes I don't even bother bringing it up because it's not worth getting into a fight. Okay, so I really don't know if we've answered any of the questions that we've presented, but let's try third time's a charm. The next question is, do you feel like you've maintained your identity in the past or current relationships? I can answer this. Okay, so with my previous relationship, I completely maintained my identity because, like, with my past relationship, honestly, I feel like I wasn't challenged in any way, where maybe he was the one that had to bring up certain conversations and then I would quote unquote win the argument because I knew I was in the right. So I feel like I maintained my identity versus the one that I'm in now, because we both challenge each other. Sometimes I do question, I'm like, am I compromising, or is it because relationships are hard and you have to put in the effort? I think I maintain my identity. It's just sometimes there's still a challenge of working things through with somebody where otherwise you're always by yourself, so you don't have to.
As much as people say that, oh, you need to know yourself before you get into a relationship or like get to know who you are and like your identity and stuff, but I think there's certain parts of you and certain identities about you'll never figure out unless you're in a relationship. I maybe that's what I mean by like your relationship identity. When I thought about this, is just like you can know yourself, you can be comfortable with who you are, but once you get into the relationship, it's a whole nother journey about yourself that you're learning.
I would like to think that I'm pretty consistent, or I would be kind of similar in a relationship and not in a relationship. But my last relationship was a long time ago, and that was a completely different jam. So we'll have to see. We could come back to this.
I feel like I would agree because you don't have issues. Not like issues, but like you don't hate men. Like you don't have communication issues. Like you're really good at that. Like you do that with us. So I don't see why you wouldn't be doing that with your boyfriend.
The only thing I could see is that because we got so comfortable, it's a lot easier for me to bring up anything to you guys, talk about anything. I would have to get comfortable enough with a guy to be as open as I am.
That's what I was actually going to bring up, something regards to that. Is that part of your identity though? The whole not opening up thing? No, right? It just takes the right person.
before, maybe I would say it's been a part of my identity because my mom always grew up telling me to protect myself, know who you're telling your things to. So I feel like I was kind of, that would have been a part of it. Like I wouldn't open up about certain things ever, but it was through our podcast and I think us developing a friendship that I got more comfortable with talking about these things, that it kind of translates over to my other friendships and relationships.
Well, hypothetically, let's say you did open up to somebody that you're talking to and it didn't work out, then do you think afterwards there might be a part of you that questions whether that was the right thing to do to open up? Or do you think you'll take it more nonchalant of, well, I did, so now I know that I can open up and on to the next kind of thing?
I think it comes back to onion layers. For me to open up to people, there's different layers of things I'll open up about. And for me to open up the deepest kind of layer, it means that I have full trust that we could go the long run, or at least I could see us being the long term for you to know these things about me. Versus the layers above that, I'm okay with talking about it with you, even if we don't go somewhere. It just depends like how much I'm sharing, but like to get to that core, it means I have a lot of trust in like me and this person.
But that doesn't mean that it still might not potentially work out.
See, I feel like for me to reveal like those type of things, it might mean like we're getting married, like we're engaged.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's tough, Jamila Wang.
But I feel like there's only a couple of things that are like that. For the most part, I think I'm okay with sharing a lot of other things. And if we don't work out, we don't work out.
Well, follow-up question then. Not including your relationship, your previous relationships, because I would argue that some of your situationships or men that you've talked to in the past were considered more serious than the ones you were in actual relationships with. So did you ever feel where maybe you felt like you were out of your comfort zone because maybe you liked the guy a little bit more, or because he was very different than what you expected, or very similar to you where you felt like you questioned your identity? Of like, for example, when you talked to him, you told us, oh, I feel like he doesn't ask enough questions. And I remember being really surprised by that because I was like, Jam's usually not the one who really cares about the most deep, meaningful conversations on dates, but you did. So then when you realized that, were you kind of surprised at yourself or not really?
I wasn't surprised because this guy didn't ask any questions. I think there's a difference of, there's a conversation going where it's a two-way streak. I say something, you can't follow up with something. But at that point, I thought it was always me bringing up questions. He didn't really bring things up. So that was like an extreme case.
But so you didn't question yourself. You just more so questioned him.
Yeah.
I've never felt like I lost myself at any point. Like even in my most serious relationship, the one that ended, I was just like, for good reason.
Do you guys know anyone who has lost their identity in a relationship?
I've never had this in my friends, but it's always a pet peeve for me once someone enters into a relationship, everything they do has to be a couple. I think in that you kind of lose your identity of like you mix this person into your life so much. But I wonder if that's like a negative trait of mine because I never mix it. So then it's just like, well, if you think you're going to marry this person, they're going to have to be integrated like that.
No, but that's different. Like not having a life outside of your relationship is different than wanting to spend time with your relationship.
Oh my God, this is what I was gonna... This is so random, but I can proudly say this. Not proudly, but like I'm very proud of the fact. But the only time for a second where I'm like, who the fuck am I? Is like people that I've dated are like explorers in the drug world. Like they're very comfortable with drugs. So then when I date them and they're so comfortable with doing it or have done it and stuff, I question and I'm like, should I try it? And then I like catch myself and I'm like, bruh, you did not spend your whole 25 years of life going through college and not experiencing drugs for you to do it now because of a man. But those are the brief moments where I'm like, oh my God, I'm being influenced by a man.
When you dated or when you were kind of talking to someone, one of your past boys, and there was one election that he didn't vote for, or I don't know, being maybe potentially a serial drinker in that regard where it's tied more closely to your life principles, did you feel like you were questioning your identity, or was it more like compromising of, well, it's not fair for me to expect this person that I'm dating to be exactly like me, so as long as he's a good person and blah 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 blah, then it's okay?
I think the voting one made me really question myself. I didn't even think about that. Like I thought that would be such a no-go. But then the last person that I talked to who didn't do that, I was just like, I had to go to therapy for it. That's how, like, not like sign up for therapy, but I literally saved that topic and I went to my therapist and I was like, I need to talk this out or else I'm going to end it. And like, we talked through my process of like, why is it so important to me? Like, what does it mean? What's like the aftermath of this now? And so it was weighing between like how much I liked this person versus how unwilling I am to compromise about it. I've come to the conclusion that like them not voting for the last election doesn't like change me as a person, and it shows more about them as a person. But then I have to proceed with like, well, the next election, are they gonna not vote if I tell them to? And things like that. Like, are they just adamantly against the idea? Because if they're adamantly against the idea of voting, then like, sure. But then I don't think that was the case. I think it was more so he didn't prioritize it. So if I were to tell him, like, you have to go vote with me right now, he would go do it. So then that was when I was like, okay, I can, like, be a little more compromising and not end that relationship right then and there.
Hey guys, this is Future Editing Jam. I just want to jump on and let you guys know that we experienced some extreme technical difficulties while filming the second half of this episode. So there's a pretty abrupt ending and we weren't able to finish the way we would hope for. Sorry about that. Well, this was our episode on relationship identity. We hope you enjoy and see you guys in the next one. Bye.